Alright guys, welcome to my final thoughts slash review of Resident Evil 8 Village. These are my honest, raw thoughts of playing the game after a few times in a row. I've been playing Resident Evil Village for a little over a week now, on stream and off stream. My first playthrough I clocked in around 16 and a half hours. You may be wondering, how? Before I even start going into details about what I loved about the game, what I disliked about the game, my confusions about the game, I will say Resident Evil 8 Village is a very good horror game. And if you haven't picked it up already or on the fence, this is a really good game. Go buy it, go experience it, go have fun. Warning, this video is going to contain spoilers for all of Resident Evil 8 and some plot points from Resident Evil 7. So if you have not played either one of those games, you've been warned, click off the video now. So I put 16 and a half hours into the game. The way I did that is exploration. This game plays very well into my OCD gamer nature when I'm playing horror games. Upgrading my abilities, upgrading my weapons, searching for hidden items and specialty items in games. Plays very well. It's very much like Resident Evil 4 in that way, and it's a very welcome addition or thing to come back into the series that was missing in Resident Evil 7. The gameplay is way tighter than it was in 7. The guns actually feel like they do something, not like you're shooting molds over and over and over again. It feels like you're shooting them with an airsoft rifle instead of an actual handgun. The level designs are really, really well done. The graphics are really well done. I played this on the Xbox Series X and it looks amazing. Okay. Whoa. Hello, Spencer Mansion. Whoa. Wow. Gotta say, that's pretty goddamn impressive. Jeez. RoboCop says this is the most beautiful part of the game. I'm blown away by it. The wood looks so natural. It does. It's crazy. It's very impressive, that's for damn sure. Oh yeah. That's some detail. Look at that chandelier, that's impressive too. I was personally excited because finally it's the first game that I've actually owned that's actually optimized for the Series X. Ethan Winters, I can actually get behind a little more as a character, because this time he actually seemed to have a little bit more of a personality. If you played Resident Evil 7, you can remember that Ethan Winters basically had no personality throughout the game. He didn't seem very affected to all the things that were going on around him at all. The bakers, the monsters, everything seemed to be kind of like, that's interesting, kind of feel throughout the entire game. This time, Ethan actually seems to be more of a badass. Yeah, he's had some special training in between the events of 7 and 8, but he actually has a personality now. He talks, he actually interacts with characters, he actually interacts with enemies this time, insulting them, and also acknowledging the fact that he just killed a monster or saw something really fucked up. grudge monster got him. So if you haven't seen my Resident Evil 7 game review in the card that's popping up right now, pause this video and watch it. But if you did see it, you do know just by the title alone that Resident Evil 7 confused me. Resident Evil 8 also confuses me. And this is not a nitpick on the game. I'm not saying the game is bad. Again, I need to make sure I state this because there's a lot of people that newcomers, I feel like, to the Resident Evil franchise that will defend this tie-in to these brand new games, Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8, into the old universe and claim that I'm not a true fan. But in fact, I am. So getting back to my point, Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8 confused me in how these are Resident Evil titles. How does anything that happened in Resident Evil 7, basically an Evil Dead game, we all know it, and Resident Evil 8 have anything to do with Umbrella, bioweapons, William Birkin, the Ashford family, anything? This is going to sound like a very controversial thing to say, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8. Capcom had no faith in making a brand new horror IP on its own, which these two games should have been. And you can definitely tell by the tie-ins to how they jazz hands throw it together, how these two games are related to the actual Resident Evil universe as a whole. It doesn't make sense. It's very lazy. So this guy's
What are you buying? Just something an old friend of mine used to say.
What? Are you kidding me? Did you guys hear that? That he referenced the merchant from Resident Evil 4? So they do know each other. This is supposed to be within the same universe. That was kind of cool. I was not expecting that. What are you buying? The fact that he references that he knows the merchant from Resident Evil 4 is like crazy to me. Resident Evil 7's tie-in was having Chris Redfield show up at the end and one picture of the Arc Lane Mountains. Resident Evil 8 had probably the most hilarious, jazz hands, lazy excuse of how these games are tied together with anything that has to do with Umbrella. That is literally done in about 2 paragraphs in a note that you randomly find at the very end of the game. Hence, the whole time I've been playing Resident Evil 8, in my mind, it's literally in the back of my mind. It's the last thing I'm thinking about, how this is a Resident Evil game whatsoever. Doesn't feel like it, doesn't look like it, doesn't play like it, except for the customization options that were in 4. That's it. And spoilers, like I said, the fact that you find a note saying that the founding member of the Ashford family who founded Umbrella knew Mother Miranda, the main evil villain in Resident Evil 8, the spider angel looking woman, who's in control of all the monsters, by the way, in the game. She's like the leader. The fact that they knew each other because Ashford was looking for a way to do something with his virus, or create something in a way to transform the world in the way that he wanted. That's the tie-in. The founding member of the Ashford family went to this this area in Village, met Mother Miranda, because Mother Miranda was doing all of these experiments and creating these monsters, these mythological monsters, vampires and werewolves and guys that have the powers from Magneto / Akira. It didn't fit with what the Ashford founding member wanted with Umbrella or the T virus or G virus. And there's literally a small snippet where he's just like, I'm founding a company called Umbrella. And that's it. When I read it initially, I wish I recorded my reaction. But when I read it, I could not help but laugh. I literally laughed out loud as I was playing it, because I could not believe how... Well, here you go, guys. I mean, that's how it felt. Jazz Hand's explanation of how these game franchise universes are tied together. Now, I've kept on saying over and over in stream until I got to that part of the game, that I felt like these two games were like spin-offs, you know what I mean? Spin-offs like Resident Evil Survivor or Resident Evil Dead Aim. Just kind of like spin-offs, one-offs, maybe completely different universes of the Resident Evil game franchise. But it's fully acknowledged that all these universes are tied together. The Ashford family, Chris Redfield, the Duke knowing the Merchant from Resident Evil 4, it's all tied together. And Ethan's whole character plot line at the end, for me, I was like, what is going on here? We're in a scene, the ending scene after Ethan dies and he wakes up, and apparently he's just a mold creature from Resident Evil 7. We get another Jazz Hands excuse, and it looks like something from the Fear games, where we're being explained that we were actually murdered as Ethan in Resident Evil 7 and was revived as mold. What? I don't understand. And it's not because, well, it might be because I'm just too stupid. Some of you think that anyway. But I don't understand. And for someone that's coming from playing both games for hours and hours and hours on end over and over again, it doesn't make sense that Ethan would be a mold creature. Now, despite all those things, despite me being confused with the storyline, despite it being convoluted and not making sense with Resident Evil universe, it's a good game. I had fun the entire time. The antagonists were all entertaining for me. Sure, the boss fights in the game, extremely fucking easy. Extremely fucking easy. I think playing this on normal mode, you're doing yourself a disservice. You should automatically turn it up to hard mode, because literally I died maybe like 3 times during normal mode, and that was because of me experimenting, wanting to see the death scenes. Or chat asking me, begging me to get eaten by the mongoloid mutant baby.
Oh, there it is. Tell me the baby doesn't look like silly putty that you put in the microwave or something. Look at it. That was a gross noise going in there. That was like being born, but opposite. Like the noise being... Ugh.
I actually prefer this game over Resident Evil 7. I feel like 7, in a way, got to a point where I was getting bored. It got to a point where I was getting bored because all the areas to me started feeling the same. The gunplay in 7 isn't on par, And with 8, the gun mechanics are way more improved. The upgrading system is fucking kick-ass. And the overall environment of the game, actually having different feeling environments throughout most of the entirety of the game, was like a breath of fresh air. It was great. Every time you felt like you were getting sick of being in one place, you were already in a new place and you're like, wow, this is awesome. I can't wait to learn more about where I'm at. And that's what it was like for me. I had so much fun exploring this game. So much fun looking for Easter eggs, looking for hidden items, looking for mythological creatures that I could get cooked by the Duke. Now, I'm going to talk about the number one sin about this game when it comes to the Resident Evil universe franchise as a whole. The number one sin is that if you look at Resident Evil from the first game all the way to Code Veronica, biological creatures in our everyday world that have the potential to spread and destroy our planet. See, for me, that's scary. That's something that can be believable, right? But in Resident Evil 8, when you start introducing mythological monsters, vampires, werewolves, or lycans as they call them in this one, and all the other stuff, the guy with the Akira Full Metal whatever Magneto power guy, I forget everyone's name, but when you introduce mythological monsters like that, you're kind of making everything that has to do with Umbrella, the zombies, the William Birkins, the Nemesis, kind of moot. When you acknowledge that there's actual real-life monsters, the biological ones kind of seem like a second thought, almost as if we're supposed to forget about it. Umbrella and the whole thing with the T-virus and G-virus and everything else is such an afterthought and such a thing that's definitely put in the back of your mind. I mean, you see the Umbrella insignia like, what, 2 times in the game, and then the one note at the very end, and Chris Redfield randomly thrown in. It makes everything moot, right? It makes the biological monsters not seem like such a big deal when you know that there's actual vampires that are our existence in this world, in this franchise. There's vampires, there's witches, there's real life monsters. Now I know there was like explanations of how this lady created certain things, but they're werewolves. They acknowledge that they're lycans. Somehow they made lycans over and over and over and over again. So for that fact, and knowing that monsters could actually exist, it does definitely make everything else when it comes to Umbrella Corps and all the biological monsters seem almost like whatever at that point. That could just be me, but that's how I honestly feel. Real life monsters compared to biological monsters, what's worse? Especially when the monsters want to take over the world or have plans of taking over the world.
Kyle says, what's my biggest gripe? My biggest gripe about the game would probably be well, my 2 biggest gripes would probably be how they tie in the Resident Evil universe. We're talking about Umbrella, specifically the company, to everything that's going on in Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8. How they tie that stuff together is by far the most laughable and most insignificant thing in the entire game. They make it seem like such a throwaway. I literally wrote it down on a piece of paper, wiped my ass with it, and put it down, and there's your explanation of how it's all tied together. When you find it and you read it, because it's all it is, like a paragraph explanation, you're gonna laugh out loud. I did. It doesn't hamper the game at all, but it's just very silly.
If I were to rate Resident Evil Village on a scale of 1 to 10, I would definitely give it a solid 8. Mercenaries mode was bleh to me. It was very bland. It could use some work. But I mean, Mercenaries in Resident Evil 4, let's be honest, I mean, it wasn't like super great, but it was more entertaining, I felt like, because of the different characters you get to play and their different abilities. Wesker, for example. I was really disappointed that Resident Evil Reverse was not released at the same time as promised as Resident Evil Village. That was a letdown. I was very confused by that because Capcom did a very silent alert to let people know, well, this game's not going to be ready until summer. Hopefully. Oops.
Let's try this out. Wait, what? Please tell me this is not what I'm seeing. Please tell me this isn't real. Service for this title has not yet begun? What? What? What, Capcom? What do you mean? Service for this title hasn't begun. What? RoboCop, no way, that's messed up. It's 100% messed up. I was so excited to play this. What do you mean? What, Capcom? Service for this title has not yet begun.
One thing that I was kind of let down on was the last boss fight with Mother Miranda. When you as the player find out that Mother Miranda can literally transform into anybody she wants, like Mystique from X-Men, I thought for sure there was going to be some twist at the end where she was Chris Redfield, or you didn't really kill Mother Miranda, it was like a decoy Mother Miranda or something like that, but it's not. That doesn't happen. And you kill Mother Miranda and that's the end of the game. Now the ending. Let's talk about the very end of the game. The very end. Where Ethan's dead, and now it's set like 20 years after Resident Evil Village. Rose, the child that Ethan is trying to save the whole time, is now a college student, and she visits Ethan's grave, and then a black SUV shows up and says, we need you. As if it's, like I said, like it's X-Men or something. I think I made the joke during stream as like, you've been invited to Charles Xavier School for Gifted Youths. That's what it felt like.
I can show you things even Chris doesn't know I can do.
I have this special school run by this man named Xavier. We want you to attend.
For me, what I think is going to happen, and I don't know if this is for sure, but for me, the message that I got in that is that Capcom is moving away from our old Resident Evil characters and trying to, within these two games, set up new lore, new kind of monsters, new threats, and our old heroes are sadly fucking old now, as they are in real life. In the video game franchise, they're old. I'm old. So you have to know now, I mean, in this game, I think Chris is supposed to be like in his 40s by now. Maybe his late 30s, I'm not sure. They don't ever tell you, but I can only assume that at the end of this game, Chris Redfield has to be in his late 50s, if not his 60s. That means Jill is old, Leon's old, Claire's old, everyone's old at this point. So it's, I feel like they're going in a way of like the Toy Story movies, you know, it's like a passing of the torch, but a confusing and not satisfying one, at least for me. I really hope this doesn't mean we're not going to get a Code Veronica remake, because the game deserves it, despite what anyone says. Code Veronica is an amazing Resident Evil title, and it deserves the remake. There was a little bit of controversy that came out also during the first week of the game's launch. The director or creator for the movie Frankenstein's Army came out and accused Capcom of plagiarizing his ideas for his monsters. And for me, I didn't see the movie, but that's going to be our next movie review that I do right after this video. I watched it. Very good way to drum up attention to your movie. And upon watching Frankenstein's Army, I can say without shadow of a doubt, Capcom definitely took heavily inspired ideas from that film when it came to the monsters, when it came to the guy with the propeller face and the guys with the drill arms when they had the armor that looked like a giant hammerhead shark fin, or the eyes. That's what it looked like. Those are straight up designs right out of that film. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I cannot, there's no way of defending it. It is absolutely true. And we'll talk about that more during my movie review of this on the next video, but yeah, it's a little concerning, Capcom. I think you should pay that guy some money.
It's a great creature design. And I could see why the guy would be annoyed. If he was like a huge fan of Capcom, huge fan of Resident Evil, and he's playing the game that he bought from Capcom, and they're using his monster design that he's getting no money from. I could see that being very upsetting and insulting. I would be. If Capcom has any decency, which I'm hoping they do, they will pay this guy some royalties for using his ideas. Obviously, it can't be disputed or argued that the monsters in this level, a lot of them, are taken from that movie, heavily inspired by. And the fact that the guy wasn't contacted by Capcom, wasn't alerted to the fact until after he bought the game, and saw the creatures, or someone on his team, or someone he knew personally that was a part of the movie, saw these creatures and alerted him to the fact, would be very upsetting. So hopefully Capcom has decency where they're going to give him some money. Or something. Or acknowledge it at least. Acknowledge the fact that the monsters came from that. So do the right thing, Capcom. Do it.
I also don't want you to confuse the subject. Even though there is ideas taken from Frankenstein's Army, you can also see heavy influences from the 80s horror movie from Japan, Tetsuo the Iron Man. And they also look like the Strogg from Quake. They look like the Borg from Star Trek. So it's not all 100% ripped off. Anyway, my final closing thoughts. If you haven't bought the game, get it. If you love action survival horror games, get this one. This is definitely heavily action based and I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm on my third playthrough right now and I cannot wait for the DLCs to come out. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video of my review / thoughts on the game, and yeah, go pick it up. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video where we review Frankenstein's Army. Later.
You know, what I really like about this game is that there's so much replayability in it compared to all of the other, like the last 3 current Resident Evil games that have happened. There's more replayability in this than in Resident Evil 3 Remake, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Resident Evil 7. I feel like this has the most replayability. But still, I will go on record to say that this is still no way ever near a Resident Evil game. I don't care about that little notepad finding that I found that ties the universes together. It's just too silly.
Yeah, right. All it's done is drive me nuts.
Oh my god. See, I wasn't kidding, guys. Look at how many hours I put into this game. Almost 16 and a half hours. From exploration. Exploration alone. Searching every nook and cranny. That's a lot of fucking hours. It's the most hours I put into a game in like a couple years. 16 times the quality. It just works.